Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of costumeco. And as always, I am so delighted to welcome my latest guest. My guest today is Kerry Weinrauch, and she is here to talk about her latest show, Watson. But before we do that, I just want to get to know her a little bit better and ask her a few questions. So, Kerry, thank you so much for being here and taking the time to chat with me.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for asking me.
And you're coming in from Vancouver, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully the weather's okay.
We just got over some big wind storms, and so it's much nicer today.
I was just saying to Kerry before we started that I'm really, as a Canadian, I'm out of Toronto. I'm always very delighted to feature Canadian artists. And so this is another example of showcasing some of our wonderful Canadian talent that we have. So, Kerry, no, you've been doing this for a while. Do you want to tell me a little bit about how you got into costume design and what your background is?
Well, my background started in fashion design. I have a degree in fashion design from Kwantlen Polytechnical University here in BC. I was born and bred in Vancouver and surrounding areas. And after that, I wanted to be a fashion designer. And I didn't realize that fashion designers, it's a hard go. You know what I mean? The people who do well do very well, but there's a lot of underpaid, like it's so I did that for years, and then I had an opportunity to go on to a Levi's commercial as a seamstress. I had no idea what styling was at the time. I spent some time with the key stylist, and she was looking for things, and I'm like, oh, I know where to get that. I know where to get this. And she's like, why don't you do this? I'm like, well, do what? And so from that, I ended up getting into styling, and I worked on commercials, music videos, band promos, fashion editorials. I loved it. But with that, I ended up getting an opportunity to work on indie film, which was really eye opening and just figuring sink or swim. I mean, I didn't really have any training in it. And it really inspired me and just opened my eyes up to this new world. So I continued back and forth. I do like a little indie thing here, go back to commercials and styling. And then I was called to do Kyle XY, the pilot. And my friend Lily Hugh had called me. That's how we became friends. And I was, new to network television, and it was for ABC Family Channel. And I got it. And then from there on, it just you just keep working on your projects, do some indies, go back and do some studio stuff. It's been great. I love it. I mean, I could not ask for a more creative, blessed, career. I feel so lucky to be able to do what I do every day.
Your story sounds so familiar to me. Like so many costume designers I talk to, they start out in styling or fashion. A lot of people like even went to fashion school. So occasionally I'll get something a little bit out of left field, like someone who did architecture or something. So I'm sure you have that experience when you're meeting other designers who come
Yes.
from
Yeah.
similar backgrounds as you. So, as I was mentioning to you before we started the show, you worked on Supernatural, which is such a global phenomenon. And, I was mentioning to you, I was such a huge fan of it, my husband and I. And I read that you worked on like 178 episodes. That is crazy.
Yeah.
We won't spend too much time on it, but do you mind telling me a bit about it?
I mean, it was 8 seasons. It was great. I was about to move to Europe because I have my citizenship and was just like, you know what? I think I can do something fresh. My son had just moved out on his own, and then I got the phone call for Supernatural. And so it was like, okay, I'm not going to turn this one down. It was such, an epic show. And quite honestly, it was the most brilliant experience. It was a family, it was magical. It was a project where I could be extremely creative. It wasn't just plaids and jeans, as people like to categorize it too, but there were so many different elements. It's like went back to different times, created monsters with great personalities, created characters from ancient lore, gods and deities, and of course witches.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny because I was thinking about Crawley the other day because I'm watching this, I was watching your show and that gentleman who has that sort of Cockney accent, I
Yeah,
kept thinking, he
Richie.
reminds me of Crawley. No, so many iconic characters. Of course, we all love the Winchesters, and many of the cast have gone on to do so incredible. So it's like it
They've
was
done
a
very well.
wonderful launching pad for them.
I mean, it was one of those shows I feel like could have gone on forever.
Yeah, I
But
know.
both,
How
yeah,
would it have ended with the Winchester brothers? But and of course, Jensen Ackles gone on to do The Boys, and wonderful show shot in Toronto. So another shout out to Canadian shot show.
I just
But
saw
anyway,
that I think, I'm not sure, don't quote me on this, but I think Jared and Misha might be connected to the boys too.
oh, wonderful.
I
Yes,
just
and of
saw
course Jared
that.
married. Oh, Misha. Yes, of course. No, I was going to say Jared's wife. Jared's wife. She was on the show as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
And so is
it's all connected.
Jamil, Jensen's wife.
Yeah, it's all connected. It is a big family, like you say. So I'm hoping we'll have you back at some point to talk about that because, there's so many things we could talk about and I need to do a bit of research before we do. But today we were going to talk about the new show Watson. And so in the States, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's on CBS.
Yep.
But in Canada, you can watch it on Global TV. Is that correct? So, yeah. And Stack TV?
Yeah. And then
so
Paramount Plus, I believe, as well.
And Paramount Plus?
Yeah.
So if any of my Canadian viewers are watching and want to know where they can see it. So I had the great privilege of seeing the first 5 episodes. I'm a little bit ahead. So I think, is it 10 episodes in total?
13.
13. Oh my gosh. That's actually for like nowadays, that's like a huge season.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, that's kind of the model for most networks. I think when you go into like the streamers and Netflix and stuff, they'll do 8 or 10 or things, but the kind of standard is usually 13 for half a season and either like 20 to 22 for a full season.
Yes. And of course, when you worked on Supernatural, you probably had quite long seasons.
22.
Yeah. Compared to nowadays when it's like, that's why I say it's 8 or some, I mean, Game of Thrones did 7 episodes for one season. I think
each of their episodes is a film in itself.
That's true. Yes, absolutely. All right. So regarding Watson, so you became involved in Watson. Now, I know you said you did Winchester as well, which was the follow-up to Supernatural. So, and I was like, what's the genre called? I'm like, I could only come up with supernatural or, maybe sci-fi or what would you call that genre?
I think it is classified under sci-fi technically.
Sure.
I mean, I think it kind of crosses over different boundaries. It's a drama at the same time. I mean, it's also kind of a detective show too. It depends.
Yeah, and there's horror elements.
Yeah.
So you're transitioning to that type of genre into sort of contemporary genre. So how was that? Or did you find that to be, no problem?
It's really not a problem. I feel genres are not specific to the designer, but more specific to the show. Designers, we adapt our designs specifically to the projects that we're on. I mean, I've done many other projects. I've done contemporary, I've done period pieces, 1940s, 1970s, some aspects of 1700s and 1800s. I feel like when you become known for a certain show, you kind of get pigeonholed as that kind of designer. But really, all designers, we can pretty much do whatever project it is. And of course, we always want to pick a project or a show that we're really passionate about and we love the script because it comes through in your designs.
Absolutely. So Watson, I think most people are familiar with Dr. Watson. Actually, I was just looking at the logo. He's got the magnifying glass in there. I think that's kind of clever. And, he's the sidekick of Sherlock Holmes. Now, I'm not going to give away any spoilers here, or maybe it's in the description, actually. About this is a standalone story for Watson. He has his own little story, but it's part of a bigger story, I suppose. So let's talk about the actor who plays Watson. It's Morris Chestnut. I have to admit, I have never seen him before. My husband said he had. He's seen him in a few. I was like, I hadn't seen him. He's wonderful.
Well, he's famous for Boys in the Hood, like the original.
Oh, yes.
Back then, yeah.
So he's been around for a while.
But he's done a lot of other shows. He was on another medical show right before this. And forgive me, Morris, that I can't remember the name of it. He's a busy man.
So in this, okay, so for the design, you're taking sort of a fresh approach. Obviously, we're not dealing with the Victorian era. You've modernized the look. So how did you go about approaching that, the modernization of the Sherlock Holmes story that everyone knows?
I mean, right from the beginning, we knew that we wanted to take a fresh approach on the Watson character. We wanted our Watson to be fashionable, current, aspirational. We approached his costumes and mood boarded looks that encaptured classic traditional menswear, but with more of a punch in the fabrication. Color, patterns, and fabrics were really our focus. With this, we have still honored the Sherlock Holmes with like classic men's styling, but added a modernity to it. We sourced designer brands for their exquisite fabrics and tailoring, looking for brands that had colors and patterns that we wanted for Watson.
Are you allowed to talk about any of the brands that you kind of like, enjoyed or like to, what are your go-to places that you enjoy?
Absolutely. We use a lot of Canali, Zegna, Armani. There's a local store here, which is in Toronto too, Harry Rosen. They have fabulous high-end menswear. Tagliatore, Lardini, Luigi Bianchi, excuse me if I butcher any of these, Fursac, Prada, Santioni, Tod's, Reese, Boss. I think we had some Ferragamo shoes in there. Morris, quite honestly, was a joy to collaborate with. I mean, he has no fear as to color and bold choices. It was really a designer's dream because we could really push the envelope, and we really, as our lead, we really wanted to really have him in the forefront and stand out. And it was just very important for us to really cast the leading man in the very bold styles and colors.
Yeah, and also it shows that sort of some of his affluence. Like you can feel like, I mean, obviously, first of all, his office. I mean, it must have been wonderful to have that as a backdrop for your clothes, right? And I keep going, geez, I don't know about working in that office with all that natural light coming in. That would just be but and his office obviously is really warm and everything, so you can have these really wonderful punches of color and everything. Did that inform any of your design, the backdrops that you were working with?
Absolutely. We work, or my team and I work very directly with the production designer and the DOPs. Dustin Farrell, the production designer, I think he did a beautiful job, especially creating two different worlds, one with Watson's office and the other one with the actual hospital. And with that, we had to really be thoughtful, intentional as to what colors we were going to use, because these bright poppy colors that you would use in his office to make him punch could end up being too bright in the hospital situation. But I think we did a great job with that. It's just like we really played with the color.
I love their lab coats, which is a wonderful tool that you have, right? So immediately, if you need to just down the color a bit. Yeah. And I love that you didn't go with white. Like, what was it? Sorry, I'm adding this question in. What was sort of your decision behind going with that sort of? Is it like a blue-gray color?
It's a light gray. Mm-hmm. It was very intentional. At the beginning of the show, we wanted something that separated Watson and the team from the rest of the staff in the hospital. And within those lab coats, you may notice that Watson's is a little bit of a darker gray than the rest of the team, but very slightly. We just wanted this so that they could stand out and give them a unity within themselves on the show. So yes, we didn't want to do the classic medical procedural as far as lab coats on everybody in suits and shirts and ties. And so I was really excited that they got to wear these great outfits, because as soon as they go back into the clinic, they don't have to wear the lab coats.
Yeah, absolutely. So it said in sort of your description about the show that you use British brands and more traditional silhouettes for Watson. Now, I guess maybe because of where I am in the show, I haven't really gotten to some of that, or maybe you have sort of like put little hints of it in there. But can you tell me a little bit about your choices and how you use costume design to visually differentiate between the present and the past?
We did that with the flashback when Sherlock and Watson went over the waterfalls.
Yes.
And that was intentional because at that time, Watson was still in Europe, and we really wanted to reflect upon Watson's time in Europe and Sherlock Holmes's influence on him. And so we chose Barber just because it's such a classic English countryman gentleman look, but also tough and rugged. And so it suited the character for what was happening in the script at that time as well. And then for Sherlock, because we never really see him, we really wanted to use the classic silhouette that is synonymous with what everybody thinks of when they think of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, and so I haven't gotten to that part yet. So I guess I'm going to be
It's
in
in
store.
episode 1.
It's coming up. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, I read something about the casting, but I won't say anything here about it. It's going to be a real surprise. So, now this is really interesting. So at first when I was watching it, I'm like, are these two different actors playing the twins? But they aren't. It's one actor who's playing and he's doing a great job, by the way. And I noticed even with his hair and his glasses and all that kind of thing, you really did create a unique sort of look for each of them and their own personalities. So do you want to tell me how you achieved that through the wardrobe?
I had as I do with all of the cast, once we've done our boards and I've discussed things with showrunners, the director, executive producers as to what kind of look we want to get for the show, I dive deep with the actors because it is absolutely a creative collaboration. And I always want to hear how they see their character being portrayed. And so I had the really big talk, Peter especially, we had a really big chat and we got into like, what kind of music would Adam listen to? What kind of hobbies would Stevens have? And it really, we just so we could mentally separate the two. I felt it was really important distinguishing them as people while we were planning on how to separate them stylistically. For Peter, we went for a way more laid back look. We went to more of like a hip street style, more of an indie music look.
He oftentimes has his feet up on his desk and everything's more casual and chill.
And it tracks with what he does for a living and just like a little bit looser, a little bit more spiritual and laid back. We did that with like the styling of the clothes, like having his shirts unbuttoned, like t-shirts, even just with a front sack. And then for Stevens, we went for much more of an uptight, closed off, almost like a clinical, practical way of dressing. Very buttoned up, tucked in and stoic. A big part of the separation of the two characters came down to fine details, like the way the sleeves were rolled up or not, how their shirts were buttoned up, tailoring, having one more fitted than the other. And then color, once again, was a big part of these two characters. We used some bleached earthy tones for Adam and grayer blues and pastels for Stevens to keep one more kind of warmer and approachable and the other kind of cooler and standoffish.
Yeah. Now, did that help the actor? I mean, obviously it helped the actor. Like, first off, I don't know how did you shoot the two actors? Did you just have to turn the camera around each time or
it's a very complicated, there was a photo double.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Makes sense.
So the photo double was in every shot when they're interacting and I don't know what the magic is with the camera operators and the DOPs.
I couldn't tell at all.
They do plate shots. I mean, I love the shots where especially one where I think Adam throws Stevens an apple, and he catches it and it's seamless. You believe they're two different people.
Absolutely. Yes.
But Peter, I mean, he does everything twice. Just like, it's pretty spectacular that they managed to do that and how seamlessly it came off.
So did you find that when he was in his different outfits, he sort of behaved differently? Maybe his posture was different or his clothing sort of informed how he carried himself and you sort of helped him there?
That was goes back to the collaboration with our cast. It's like when we were in the fittings too, it's like I absolutely take their input in because like the last thing I want to do is put an actor in something they're not comfortable in because I feel like that could compromise their performance. I don't want them thinking about the clothes. I want the clothes to be their character so that they sink in and it's believable by them, by us, by the viewers, by everybody. So there is a lot of back and forth. And Peter, even in the fittings, he would stand differently in posing for the photos as he would for Adam, as from what he would do for Stevens. Like he became the different person, even in those like small times of even during fittings.
That's so cool. By the way, I dated a twin many years ago, and it was really interesting because they were identical twins, and it was really interesting, like their physicality, like it was different, like
Yeah.
how unique they were, even though they were identical, because they were growing up in their own. And obviously, we find out one of them is in recovery, so that would obviously, I don't know. Hopefully, that's not a spoiler. If it is, I can take it out. Okay, so do you want to tell me, like Eve Harlow? I loved her in The 100, by the way. The 100, the
Yeah.
100. Some people call it The 100 or The 100. I loved her in that. So, what was it like working with her and her character, Ingrid, who's kind of she's a little bit of enigma, I think. Like, I haven't quite figured her out yet.
She's a complete enigma. She's one of those characters that even in the beginning stages of boarding, myself, the EPs, the directing producer, we went in the showrunner. We went back and forth a lot as to who she was, and really trying to define and pinpoint. Especially once they cast somebody, then you're like, oh, okay, what we had thought was just very subjective. You know what I mean? Because there wasn't a person attached to it. Then when we saw the actor, I was like, okay, we've got to flip this, because we just wanted something that suited Eve, because she's such an amazing actor. And she had a lot to bring to the table too, as to how she felt that her character should look, but she was completely wide open to everything, like completely brave as far as styling. She would have done, which I can quote her, she said, I would do wardrobe fittings 24 hours a day. I love them so much.
Wow.
Yeah, she just loved it. But it was really great fun dropping in and trying one thing and then trying another and seeing what fit and brought her character together. I mean, she's a really interesting character to dress. Her character is cold, a bit of a blank slate. I mean, we created her. Ingrid's looks to be very hip and indie designer and stylish. I feel like with her character being an enigma, it's hard to put a finger on who she is. And through her clothing, it is something that we were very intentional in kind of creating a mask, so that she's putting one version of herself forward for everybody she's around to hide who she really is.
Yeah, and as you watch the show, the layers start to kind of peel away, right? We start to see more and more of her.
Layers a lot with her.
Yeah. Now, I didn't have this in the question. I don't know why, but did you want to talk a bit about Sasha?
She was great.
Played by Inga.
And I loved their casting
Schlangen.
and their choices for the characters in the ensemble cast,
Yeah,
because everybody is so different.
they totally are. And I
And
understand she was a beauty queen.
she was a beauty queen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, immediately it was probably so fun to work with her.
So great. And because her character is supposed to be from the South, classic all-American girl, very much like a debutante, and kept her look stylish but very feminine. She was one of the characters that we really used dresses on more and kept her very feminine. I feel like with Ingrid's character, we could be androgynous sometimes. And then with Mary, it was more kind of feminine power suits. So it was really fun to play with Sasha's character.
Like you did. I don't think you did florals on anyone else that I could
No,
tell.
that was intentional. So she got the floral.
Florals were for her.
Yeah.
And beautiful pastels. Like, honestly, that's one of those, I was like, I would wear her clothes. I absolutely loved her clothes. I usually don't like sort of, want to covet a character's clothing, but her outfits would be the ones I definitely would want to wear.
Yeah. We leaned heavily into like classic silhouettes, much kind of like the new look from Dior and Audrey Hepburn from Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and Inga, she's perfect for dressing in this fashion. She's tall, she's just like perfectly proportioned. It's just like it was great.
Now, I'm probably getting this a bit out of order, but we were talking about some of your influences you just mentioned. So did you have any historical influences? Did you have couture, like you were mentioning, like any specific designers that you leaned into a little bit?
I mean, we knew from the beginning with Watson that we were going classic higher end menswear. So we definitely just because Morris is in incredible shape. And so you want to use great designers with great tailoring. I think tailoring was the key, because you can have this, bright, funky suit, but unless the tailoring's done properly, it's never going to look like that. And Morris's frame really suits Italian tailoring. So we really kind of dipped into that. With Shinwell, he was a joy. We really, as far as historical influences, we really dove deep into East End gangsters, British gangsters through history. And I had made all these boards up, and it was funny because when I spoke to him on the phone and started talking about what I was thinking, he was very much on board. And he said to me, he's like, I've made my own boards up too. Is it okay if I send them to you? And he's such a thoughtful gentleman. Like, he's just
That's amazing.
And he sent his boards, and it was funny because we both had the same pictures on some of our boards.
So great. Yeah, he feels like he would have stepped off of out of a Guy Ritchie movie or something.
He does look like that, completely.
Yeah.
Or Blinders or something.
Like Vinnie Jones, or one of those
exactly.
characters.
I've worked with Vinnie Jones too.
Oh, you have? Amazing.
But for Ritchie, his personal style is actually quite similar. Not so much with the layerings and the tweeds and everything. And because we weren't using the tweeds on Watson, which could have been like the easy idea to go with, being the shirt with carrying on with the Sherlock Holmes canon, because Shinwell used to be Holmes's assistant, that's where we used our tweeds. And so it was a lot of layering. My shopper who was prepping his looks, she dove deep into British brands and just these beautiful companies that still make these gorgeous tweeds, and the layers and the vests and the waistcoats and the coats and his neckties. I mean, the neckties may seem like it's just an add-on, but it was something that Ritchie and I would sit there and talk about the scene or talk about the look and be like, is it the red? Is it the green? Is it the blue? Or do we want the
Well, I noticed it because I'm a huge fan. I love cravats and ascots. So I love that he was wearing, like, it looked like a cravat. Was that what it was?
He wore some cravats, but yeah, it was a lot of cotton neckties or like cotton kerchiefs.
Yes, kerchiefs, exactly.
But
and also, it must have been fun with the hats as well, to do some of the hats.
It was great. And that itself too, because hats, I feel, are such a personal thing. I mean, I know with myself, it's like you can have a hat, but it's how it sits with your face. Mm-hmm. So he would put it on, tilt it this way, tilt it that way, try it that way, try another one, because I don't like when everything matches. I loved his character because we could do an orange plaid with like a green and then put a blue hat and just really create kind of an eclectic look with him, which I think really suited the character as well.
Absolutely. So, we're near the end here, but I just wanted to ask you, so what was the biggest challenge that you had? Like, I mean, obviously working in Vancouver, you have probably had to deal with climate. I don't know, it's rainy or what have you, but, doing exteriors, but what was your biggest challenge in your mind working on this show?
I think the biggest challenge is really much like every other show is the speed you get things at, because you get an episode, you're prepping, and then you're waiting for cast. And in the beginning, it's like we're doing all this pre-prep, but you always get cast in very close to the first day of shooting. And then there's camera tests, there's makeup tests, there's all this, and you're trying to like get your little fittings in here and there. And you've got to do alterations. You've got to get, switch out sizes. Then you go into gallery shoots and promo shoots while you're prepping for the first day. And really it's having a great team and having a great relationship and conversations with the EPs and the directors and the other departments that really gets through, because everybody at that point is just going flat out. It's one of those things, like, I really love the frenetic energy at that point too, because it's just like everybody is at their best creatively. Like, it really excites me as much as it can be exhausting. It's really kind of what you live for. It's
yeah, I feel sometimes you have to be a little bit of an A-type personality to enjoy it. You have to enjoy the process, right? You can't just
love it. It's seriously a career that you have to love. Mm-hmm. We put so much time and our souls into it, and the teams we have around us and our crews around us end up becoming family, because it's really important to stay grounded, stay kind, and like take care of each other and have each other's backs and just work really hard.
So, do you have something that you're really proud of that you did on this show, that you can think of off the top of your head? Because I'm just asking you now. I'm not going to give you any warning.
There's a few things. I mean, I love where we got with Ingrid's wardrobe. I really loved being able to use indie designers and not just buying the regular stuff or going to chain stores. Because for me, it's really important to support indie designers and mom and pop shops. And also it looks way more interesting on camera. And it's like, you want to create characters where the viewers are like, what is that? I need that. You know what I mean? Or that's how that was put together is really interesting. Like, you really want to inspire people with the way you're dressing the characters. I mean,
Absolutely.
like, as a costume designer, it's like the first time you see the character, before they say anything, before anything happens, you're already making your judgments on who that character is and what they are. And I really love that aspect of my job, that we're part of telling the story and we're the visual storytellers with it. So
Yes, that's the message I'm constantly telling my audience, that this is what the purpose of. It's not just to put people in pretty clothes; it's to tell the story, and that's why your job is so important.
there
Well,
is
I
a
want.
couple of faves. I mean, I
Yes.
love Watson's purple suit. Anything Watson wears, I love it when Watson, he has turtlenecks under double-breasted jackets. You cannot make that man look bad. I mean, he does knitted polo shirts. He was a dream to dress, and quite honestly, such a gentleman and one of the most gracious people I've ever worked with in my life. He is so kind.
And he
Um,
looks cute in his jammies too. You
he
know
does
his jammies?
you can't make him look bad. He has a peach overcoat coming up. I
Oh,
think it's in episode 109. It's very punchy. And the fact I could put something like that on television on a man, I am just like, mwah, like, just so happy. Mary, her pink suits, she wears color as well, really well. And I love being able to play Watson and Mary off each other, depending on what's going on in the storyline, whether it's opposites and you're doing opposing colors, or when there's times when, they're getting along and you want to kind of bring them together visually as well. Yeah, I mean, Sasha has this beautiful floral, you'll wait for it, you'll love it. This beautiful floral pink dress coming up with like puffy sleeves. It's just so feminine but strong at the same time, because I believe like her character arcs too. And it's just like, you don't want to think that she's just this little flower. Like, there's a lot to her character as well. Like, she's a tough one.
you mentioning Mary, it made me think that I think Mary is she always in solids? I don't think I saw her in a
Oh,
print, but I could be
solids.
wrong. Yeah, so she always wears like a beautiful sort of pastel, and then she always wears like a blouse or a tank or something under it,
Yeah,
like a silk, a little bit of feminine.
we really wanted to keep her strong, being, the director of the hospital, but also give her a softness. And so we didn't want to go completely masculine, but we really did not want to go girly in any which way, because she is to be respected. Like, so it was very masculine cuts with a female edge. And Rochelle, she used to be a dancer. She has so much poise and elegance dressing that woman. It was just like, she was a dream. Like, she's such a lovely lady.
I can't think of what her shoes were. What kind of shoes was she wearing?
That's because most of her pants are quite long.
Yes, they're like full leg, right?
Yeah, because we want to go with like the full length, because having the same color suits,
Mhm.
visually, it just looks really great on a character. And the way that Rochelle carries herself is so poised and dignified. It's just like, we really wanted to get that full vertical look with her. She wore heels.
Yeah, and I like it. Like if she's in her office, she can take off her jacket,
Yeah.
like she's at work. But then when she has to be sort of making her rounds or whatever, she can put the jacket on, look professional.
And we do see her casual as well. And with that,
Mhm.
we wanted to completely go the opposite of how we'd seen her at work, like when she's talking to Watson, and put a little softness in there. So we just dipped into some beautiful cashmeres. and some nice denim, and just kind of soften her up, but still, just keeping it with the character at the same time, because you never want to go too far left when.
Yes. So, all right. So now that the series is done and the season's done, I guess you don't know if there's a season 2 yet.
We're waiting. Hopefully we find out soon. Everybody's got their fingers crossed. I think it's a fantastic show, very smartly written, intelligent. It's kind of, I know it gets compared to House and other things, but it's very different from the others. I mean, just because it is a medical procedural, but it's also a detective show, and it's got so many great underlying stories that are coming out within it too. Yeah, I'm really fingers crossed for everybody, cast and crew and everybody involved. I think it could be a great one.
And are you working on anything else at the moment, like coming up?
I'm not right now. I'm working on commercials again.
Oh, well, it's good money.
You know what? I always go back and forth. I also do photography, so I'm using that time to work on my own personal art. It's nice to take a break. I worked 11 months straight last year, and so you need to balance your work life. Otherwise, because you burn out, and nobody wants to, burn out. It's just you got to take care of your health. I'd like to go work in Europe. I've got my citizenship, so that's always been a goal for me. And yeah, I don't know. I just, got fingers and toes crossed for Watson right now.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Kerry, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat with me. We were talking before that you've been nominated for a Kafka, a Kafka award, I should say, and the ceremony is on the weekend. So I wish you the best. What show are you nominated for?
Winchesters. They canceled the Kafkads last year because of the strike, and so it's
Oh,
2 years worth of awards in 1 year this year.
okay. And I'm going to be there, so I get to meet you in person. I'm so excited. It's my first time going. So we were chatting. I have to go find myself something to wear. We both do. We have to find something nice to wear for the weekend. So anyway, thank you so much for taking the time. As I mentioned, Watson, it's on CBS in the US, CBS in the US. And in Canada, it's on Global TV, which is like we have this in Ontario, as well as Stack TV and it's Paramount Plus. I think you can stream it on as well. So I encourage everyone to check it out. It's a wonderful show. I think they've only aired 3 episodes so far, perhaps. And so there's 13 in all.
This Sunday.
On Sundays. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, thanks so much. And I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
And thanks everyone for watching. Take care now. Bye.
Bye.